Gainesville.
No, it's up here at 215.
Right, Vint Hill. Okay, Vint Hill.
Vint Hill. I think we moved there because I can vaguely remember going up and down those. They have an apartment over the store, and I can vaguely remember going up and down those steps in the back. My mother holding my hand, and the only reason I know that is because the Hughes family were in the military, and when we were in the Warrenton branch, they lived there, and we visited them.
Oh.
When I walked up those steps, it was deja vu all over again. I thought, oh, I've been here.
You remembered that?
I remembered, yeah.
It must have been pretty small, though.
That's probably around 3.
Because how much older than Aunt Margaret? Like
a year.
A year. So she would have been a baby.
Yeah.
You don't remember your brother at all, do you?
No, because he died.
He was before you were born. That's right. Okay. There was another. So people called Grandma Liz?
Liz Bean. Liz Thomas.
Liz Thomas.
Liz Thomas was her nickname.
How come she named you Helen Muriel?
Because of a book that she read.
That was the name of a character in the book?
Yes. I hated Muriel.
Why? It's a beautiful name. It's very feminine. I've always liked it. So apparently she named Aunt Margaret. She got her middle name, Elizabeth. Tell me about the how she took care of those bachelors, those guys. What were their names?
Casey and Noli Beaumont.
It was 2 guys?
It was 3 of them.
3 of them?
Uncle Sandy died when we were still quite small. I can remember him. I can remember teasing him.
Really?
My sister and I would grab his cane. He couldn't walk without his cane. And my mother would help him out into the yard so he could sit out in the fresh air. And we'd grab his cane and dance around him.
Really?
Yeah, you can't catch me, you know.
How old were you?
He'd say, Liz!
He'd call her?
Yeah, make her come out there and make us behave ourselves.
How old were you when y'all lived? This was on Johns Island?
No, this was at Cat Harpin.
Oh, this was still in Cat Harpin.
Well, yeah, we didn't move to Johns Island until I was 16, probably. We moved to Charleston, South Carolina.
So this was in Cat Harpin off of 234, that part?
This was up at, yeah.
The house?
Saunders Lane.
Is the house still there?
The house is still there.
Do you remember the address?
Yeah, well, no. I don't.
But
Margaret and I go up there quite often.
Really? Somebody's living in the house now?
Well, the people who lived there have both died and it's been sold. I don't know who's living there now. Matt, let's get down.
So she kept house for these 3 guys, Sandy and...
Uncle Sandy and Casey and Noli.
They were all 3 pretty old, pretty elderly.
Yeah.
How did they like...
I guess they needed a housekeeper and somebody suggested, well, she can do it.
Was she working outside the home?
No, all she did was take in laundry for people. She did, even after she moved there, she bought a old Maytag washer, the kind that has a motor that runs outside and has an long exhaust pipe. It's real loud. And she did laundry for the neighbors, did their washing and ironing.
And she just decided to take in these 3 guys just as extra income?
She didn't take them in, they took her in, I guess.
Oh, so this was their house?
This is their house.
Oh, okay. And you guys just moved in?
Yeah.
And then okay. How long did y'all live there?
We lived there until my mother started working out of the home and met my stepdad, and we moved to Charleston, South Carolina.
That's right. You showed us that area where y'all lived. We were down there several years ago. So you had some other stories about those 3 men that she kept house for.
Well, Noli was in the Civil War. He's probably the one I've told you about.
Probably.
And he was gassed really bad.
Right.
Mittens, for gosh sakes. So when he get ready to talk, he was bald-headed, and he would get himself all wound up before he could start talking. We used to kind of make fun of him, but that was rude, wasn't it? That's the child.
No, we were kids. Okay.
Paul loves cats.
So, when did you live on Johns Island then? Or did...
We lived in Charleston for a while, and then Mr. Cohen, who owned a bunch of... He owned Cohen's department store. He was quite wealthy. He had a riding academy, and he had a big ranch out on Johns Island,
Mhm.
and he wanted Papa to go out there and manage the ranch for him.
Oh.
So on that ranch we had horses and cattle and sheep,
Mhm.
and it was a beautiful old mansion with pecan trees. They had several black tenant houses
Mhm.
on the property where the laborers lived, and I used to ride the horses when they'd rotate the horses from the riding
Mhm.
academy and bring them out.
How old were you then?
I was 16.
Oh gosh, so you probably got good memories of that then.
I was down there last year, and you hardly recognize the place. They tore down the old house, built $1 million homes in there now, right on the water.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that where you met Daddy?
No, I met him when I was in Charleston.
Okay, so that's not, Johns Island wasn't considered Charleston. Okay, they're two separate places?
Johns Island is an island off of.
But they're kind of close to each other, aren't they?
It's about. It's a good distance. It takes about an hour to drive from Charleston out to Johns Island.
So how long did you live on Johns Island?
Maybe a year.
And then you moved to Charleston?
Then we moved back to our house in Charleston.
Oh, okay, so Papa just moved, y'all moved out there just for that year so he could do the farming or whatever, take care of the ranch.
Yeah.
So you kept the house then in Charleston while you were living on Johns Island?
Yeah.
Did y'all own it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then you met Daddy?
No, I met him
in Charleston when you moved back.
I met him before. I met him right after we moved out to Charleston. Because he lived
before Johns Island or after?
Before Johns Island.
Oh, okay.
He lived across the tracks. He lived on the other side of the tracks.
Yes. Was it the wrong side of the tracks?
Actually, it was just across the tracks, the railroad track. And we could almost see his house. I could hear him when he would leave his house.
Oh, really?
But he'd have to go several miles down the road, then come back up to get to my house.
So, if you lived on Johns Island when you were 16, so you met him when you were...
I was 14.
14.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you were much older. I mean, I thought you were probably about 16 when you met him. So you were 14.
I was 14.
Well, tell me about that.
About how I met him?
Yeah.
Well, he was a shy fellow. And where we lived, my mother made us pretty much stay at home. And we had a nice yard with what they called a flying jenny in it. The people who lived there had children. They had
oh yeah, the little seesaw thing that went around in circles. Yeah.
And they had a barbecue pit in the yard and picnic tables and benches and stuff. So we always had what they call peanut boils, weenie roasts, and
you ate the peanuts out of the shells, right?
Yeah.
I always thought you ate the shells after you boiled them.
No. And our house was a hangout place for all the teenagers. But he was very shy. He'd come and play softball. We played softball in the road behind our house because it wasn't traveled
Was it
very
real
much.
softball or stickball?
What's stickball?
Like with just a straight stick, or did you use a baseball bat?
No, we used a baseball bat, but it wasn't. We didn't have enough room to have a baseball diamond because we played in the road.
In the road.
Yeah. So. And then eventually we started going to a skating rink to do skating together, and then we started walking to the movies, but we always went in groups. And I dated him for a while. I don't know whether you even call it a date. We went in groups, but we kind of paired off.
So when you were 14, you knew you liked him then? He was good looking.
Yeah, he was good looking.
So what happened when you went to Johns Island? Did you write to him, or?
No, he would drive all the way out there to see me occasionally. That's what my stepdad said. You know he's in love because he had an old command car with no windshield on it. And it'd be freezing rain, and he'd come driving all the way out there, and he'd be nearly froze when he got there.
Golly. Wow.
So
it's kind of fun to think.
So my parents would let him stay. He'd come out and spend the weekend with us sometimes, but I didn't see him every week. Sometimes it'd be 2 weeks before he got back out.
When did he start working? Was he working?
He was working. Him and his dad and mother and them. They made mattresses.
Oh, they did? When he was about 14, he was working for the family company?
Yeah.
When did they start the cabinet making business?
After we moved to Alabama.
After you were married?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. It's a good thing I'm asking these questions because I'm learning a lot of stuff. I've always heard stories in bits and pieces, and when you hear them in bits and pieces and put them together, they come out differently. So, and then when you moved back, you were 17 when you moved back to Charleston then?
Probably.
I'm gonna set this here and then it's Jimmy. I'll call him back.
Okay. Can you see it?
Okay. Okay. Oops. What's that? Oh, that's
your
this.
phone.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay. So, when did you actually start like dating just him? And you knew it was like, when did you know you were in love?
Well, when I was out on Johns Island, let me tell you, when we moved from Virginia down to Charleston, and I missed a lot of school because we moved in February, and we couldn't get into our house because we bought our house from a naval officer.
Right.
And he was from California, and he wasn't quite ready to move, so we had to stay right down in the city of Charleston on Montague Street for quite a while before we could move out into our house, so therefore we didn't go to school. So when we did go to school, we found out that up here we had 7th grade.
Right.
You graduate from 7th grade, then you start first year of high school.
Yeah.
In the South, they don't have that. They have middle school, which was 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so they put me up a grade. So I skipped a grade, but I wasn't smart enough really to make good grades.
I see.
So,
the stretch.
yeah. Then we moved out to Johns Island. It was at the end of the war, and a lot of the soldiers were coming back, and of course they could go back to school on the GI Bill.
Right.
So the school was just flooded with young service people. And I made good grades on typing, but when I moved to Johns Island, they had a limited amount of typewriters. Therefore, you didn't get to use it except maybe once or twice a week. So, and you graduated from the 11th grade.
You could graduate with full honors, or you just didn't have 12th grade?
They didn't have 12th grade.
Oh, I see. That was the highest
11th grade was when you graduated.
Wow.
So I graduated from 11th grade, but I never did get my diploma because I didn't, was jumping around. I didn't have the credits I needed.
You didn't have all the credits you needed?
Yeah.
Oh.
So then I took my GED test after I moved up here.
So you graduated before you got married, though? You were 17. You must have been 16 when you graduated then. Since your birthday's in August, you probably graduated right before you turned 17.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that would make sense. Because you would have turned, right, you would have been in 12th grade the next year.
Yeah.
So when did you know you were in love?
I don't remember.
When did there was one time when you had pleurisy or something? Was that?
That was when your dad had already moved back. He moved to Alabama, but we were still living in Charleston, and I was working at the cigar factory, and I contracted pneumonia.
Were you 16 or 17?
It was just before I got married, so.
You must have been 17, just barely 17.
I must have been barely 17. Anyway, I run a real high fever. I was delirious, and he drove from Alabama up to see me.
Up to Charleston? Now, did they live in Alabama before that, or was that the first time they had moved to Alabama?
Well, I think they lived in Alabama numerous times.
They just kind of moved back and forth?
They were from Springfield, Tennessee.
Right. But they were living in Charleston when you first met him.
Yeah. They moved to wherever the employment was at.
Right.
And there was a Colonial Furniture Company that built reproduction antiques.
Right.
So that's why they moved down there. So
that's when the cabinet making business started, or the...
That they were working for Charlie King at the time.
Yeah.
He owned it. But then later, I guess they must have bought that business.
Yeah. That was the Colonial Furniture Company?
Yeah.
So that's the same one that Daddy started up here. He just used the same name.
He used the same name.
Okay. So, so then he came up, and then, like, when did he ask you to marry him?
He didn't. He wrote me a letter.
Really?
Yeah.
From Alabama?
Mm-hmm.
And just said, Marry me?
Yep. Catch the bus and come down,
Really?
and let's get married.
And how long after that did you actually get married?
I got married on June the 2nd.
Right. 1840.
No,
1947.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Did you hop on a bus right away after you got the letter?
I had saved my money.
Yeah.
I was working at the cigar
Right.
factory, and so I bought me a nice white dress and white shoes and a white hat and
Really?
everything, yeah. And I caught the bus and went down to Alabama, and his mother and him came to the
Right.
bus station to pick me up, and of course I had to go to the bathroom, and that's where she came in the bathroom, and she couldn't find me because I was in the stall, and she
Yeah.
went back out, and she said, I guess she didn't go.
Oh no.
They said he was very upset.
I bet.
And I walked out, and they happened to see me. So.
Huh. Did you get married that day or
No.
later?
No, we didn't get married till, that was, I can't remember what day I went down there, but I got married as soon as we could get to the courthouse. Maybe it was a weekend.
So you got
before.
married at the courthouse?
Yeah.
Did you have a honeymoon?
Nope, Justice of the Peace. We got married with the Justice of
Really?
the Peace.
And then where did you set up housekeeping when you right after you got married?
He had already bought, the Phippses had gone together when the war was
Right.
over. Napier Field sold all their
Army barracks?
they sold the army barracks, and they also sold the officers' housings. And we wanted to get a house, but I guess they waited too late or something. So they went together and they bought a long barracks, and we had 3 apartments in that long barracks. We had the front apartment.
Who got married first? You,
Me.
Uncle Bubba, and
No, Uncle
so you
Bubba
got
got
married-
married about a year later.
so you got married before them?
Yeah.
Caesar impromptu. I'm trying to think. I had a question while you were talking, and I can't remember what it was now. Oh, when did he first share the gospel with you? Was it?
Oh, that was before we were really serious.
Yeah.
We were walking home from the movies one
So
night, and he
this
just
was
started.
before you moved to Johns Island or after?
It was before.
Okay, so
while we
when
were
you
still
first
living in-
met him, I
Yeah.
see.
We were walking home from the movie one night, and he told me about the plan of salvation,
Really?
and I was just thrilled with it, because I just had already believed that anyway, but nobody had ever.
You just had an instinct about it.
I guess so. I used to pray, and I would vision a heavenly Father, not a spirit.
Right.
And when he told me that, it
clicked.
clicked. Yeah, I just knew it was true. And I went home all excited and told my mother about it, and she popped my bubble. She says, "Don't let him fill your head full of all that hogwash."
Yeah.
So,
How did it make you feel?
deflated.
But you still believed it.
I believed it,
You
yeah,
still believed
even though
it?
she didn't believe
Did you
it.
tell him that your mom said that?
I think I did. I don't remember whether I did or not.
So did y'all talk about the gospel a lot
He
on
did.
your dates?
He did, because he was inactive and he wanted to start going to Mutual, I think they called it.
Right.
And said he wanted me to go with him, but he never did go until after we got married.
So you went to Mutual after you got married?
No. We never
Oh,
went to
he-
church.
I see.
After we got married, then he started going to church occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Started off by taking his mother and dropping her off and sitting in the car and waiting for her.
Oh, really?
And then we decided to start going.
Why do you think it was, he had a testimony. Why do you think it was hard for him to actually
he
commit
smoked.
to... Oh, he still smoked at the time.
Yeah,
When did he
yeah.
start smoking? How old was he?
He started smoking when he was a kid. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It couldn't have been too long.
And
'Cause,
I think when you have a bad habit, you just
Yeah.
don't feel.
well, everybody was doing it back then, and they didn't know how harmful it was.
I guess
So he stopped, though, when Marie was a baby?
he burned her
Yeah.
accidentally.
Was it before Bobby was born?
Yeah.
So he didn't smoke for very long,
No.
because y'all were kids when you got married.
Yes, true. He probably started smoking though when he was 10 years old. I don't know.
Gosh. Ooh, that's hard to believe.
He lived a rough life. They were, like I said, they were from the other side of the tracks,
Yeah.
and all his friends, they used to play on the dump. Go around
Right.
the dump and play.
Well, I think it was pretty standard for boys back in that day and
Really?
age.
And they roamed around
Yeah.
and
Let me think. I wanted to ask you about the ice cream corn story.
Because we were country kids and I had never went to the city, and I've heard people talking about ice cream cones, but I thought they were saying ice cream corn. And Papa was taking us somewhere, and we stopped in Haymarket at Gossip's store, and they gave me the money and told me to go in there and get an ice cream cone for me and one for my sister. So I went there and asked for 2 ice cream cones.
That's funny.
It is pitiful, isn't it?
No, because I was raised with not ever swearing, and the first time I heard a swear word, I thought they were talking about something else.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you don't know, you don't know. Okay. What was the dumbest stunt you ever did? What was the dumbest thing you ever did?
I don't recall ever doing anything dumb.
Okay, that's good. How about the worst winter storm?
Worst winter storm. Because we didn't have a car, the winters seemed like they were really bad, but we didn't have to get out and go anywhere. So
You didn't think of them as being bad. You just
the worst winter storm was when Marie and Bobby and Sharon were young, and we was living up in that house up on the hill.
And that was the one where Daddy got.
That's where he spent the night in the car.
I need to have that on tape. You told us that whole story several weeks ago, and that was a good one.
Yeah. You can tell that another time.
Well, I want to get all of this. How about, okay, after y'all were first married, you got married in June, so was it pretty much 11 months later that Marie was born?
I got married on June the 2nd, and she was born May the 24th.
So pretty much almost exactly a year.
Almost a year. Just like in a couple of weeks.
Were all of your kids a surprise, or any of them planned?
None of them were planned.
They probably didn't plan them back then, did they?
No.
You probably just let
No,
it
we were
happen.
just careful where we hung our underwear. We didn't hang our underwear on the line side by side.
I see. That's a good one. So after you guys got married, you had Marie, and then a year later you had Bobby.
1 year and 1 day later, I had Bobby.
And at what point did you start becoming real active in church?
I went to church every Sunday, but I wasn't a member.
Right.
Because I didn't want to join the church, because I didn't want to have to give prayers in public and give talks and that kind of stuff.
Right. But Daddy started coming with you, didn't he?
Oh, we went together as a family, yes. He was active.
Right after you got married, or?
No, after Marie was born.
Okay. You started going actively again.
Yeah. And I joined the church. I was baptized, let's see. I have it written down somewhere when I joined the church. I was pregnant with Sharon. She was born in November. It's in the summertime because I baptized me in a pool there, right close to the house.
Is she a year and a half younger than Bobby?
Bobby was born in May, and she was born in November.
A year and a half later, right?
Yeah.
Or not 2.5. So
she was born in 1950, and he was born in 1949.
Okay. So then the summer of 1950, you were baptized.
1950.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I'll have to get that date.
To think about it.
Yeah, I can get that date. How long before you got your first calling after you were baptized?
A week.
Really? Did it terrify you?
Yes. I was baptized on, it seemed like it was a Wednesday, it was the middle of the week. And I had to give a 2.5-minute talk the following Sunday.
Really?
Yes, I can still remember that talk.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
I gave a talk that was given in a Aaronic priesthood meeting about these 2 young boys who lived in the West, and they had been raised by a strict family, and they were going off to college, and they thought that they would take this time when they were traveling to college, to have a good time. And when they were driving and they came to, I don't know what town was, but so the lights of the casinos were flashing, and they decided to go in this casino, and they were going to try some beer. And when they went into the bar and they ordered their beer and was sitting there, and this man comes sit down beside them, and they started talking. And come to find out, the man was a business partner and knew his father and knew he was Mormon.
Right.
So that was the story. No matter where you are, you have to be mindful of your actions because people are watching.
You still remember? I remember a story.
It was more than that, but I remember the
You
gist of
remember
it.
the gist. I remember a story you used to tell us, and it always stuck with me and helped me to choose the right, about the cornfield, about the man and the boy.
That was your dad's first 2.5 minute talk after he joined the church.
Really? It was telling me that story.
After he got active in the church.
Right.
he said that
Now, these 2.5 minute talks were in Sunday school or in Sacrament?
Sunday school.
Oh, okay.
He had to give a 2.5 minute talk
Right.
in the mornings. Yeah. And he said that this father and son were hungry and they were going to get some corn from the neighbor's cornfield. And the father took his son with him and he said, "You stand out here in the road and you watch and tell me if anybody's coming." And the man went into the cornfield to pull the corn and he said, ask his son, "Is anybody watching?" And his son said, "Yes, Dad." He waited a little while. He said, "Is anybody watching now?" And he said, "Yes, Dad." And he asked him several times. And his dad says, "Well, who is watching?" He said, "Heavenly Father's watching." So
I always remember that story, and it has actually helped me in a lot of conscientious decisions.
yeah.
So y'all got, it's okay, so you became active. When did y'all move up here from Alabama?
We went to the temple. We got back from the
And
temple.
the first 3 kids were little, or?
No, we had 5
So
kids.
you had Chris and
Leland.
Leland, and you
Leland
were
was a
still living
baby.
in Alabama?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had been up here several times to stay a month or two
Just
at a
visit.
time, just visit, yeah.
Where did you stay? Just yeah. Oh, in the little chicken coop, right?
Yeah.
With the no. Well, tell me
Right.
about those experiences.
I'd rather not even talk about those.
Why? Y'all stayed in the chicken coop?
It wasn't a chicken coop, it was a chicken, it was a corn crib.
A corn crib.
It was a corn crib that had been converted to actually it was 2 bedrooms. It was a kitchen and a
Oh,
bedroom.
so it was like a little,
It was a building,
yeah.
had a stove, refrigerator,
Oh, okay.
a stove in the kitchen,
But the
table,
walls had
chairs.
holes in them. No
Um,
insulation.
I don't think we had any insulation, but we had a wood stove, so
So it kept warm.
it
if
kept
you
it
had
nice
to.
and warm, yeah.
And you don't want to talk about it? Is it bad memories?
No, it's not really bad memories. It's just, I don't know what there is to say about
I
it.
see. Okay. So you'd come
We
up
were
to
just
visit.
poor folks.
Right. Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
My mother and Papa would go out and they had a school bus
Yeah.
that had.
Is that the one that's behind her house?
It may be, I don't
Yeah.
know. And they had a bed and stove and they
Well, you did
sleep
what you
in
could
this.
do to make
Yeah.
it. So, you come up and stay a month or two, just what, to see how
Actually,
things were? Or?
Your dad would come up. There used to be a song called "My Heart Goes Where the Wild Goose Goes."
Mm-hmm.
Well, he used to like to sing that song, and he'd come up here in the summertime. But when the wintertime come, we'd go back down to Alabama. and
What would
spend
he do when he'd come up during the summer?
He worked for a colonial furniture
Oh.
company in Alexandria.
Oh,
That
so it
was
was.
owned by Mr. Weir.
So there was a colonial furniture company up here as well.
Yeah,
There were
uh-huh.
2 separate companies,
Two separate.
but they did kind of the same thing.
Well, this colonial furniture company did mostly repair work.
I see.
He did upholstery, and they did restored.
So he'd come up
Antiques.
here in the summer and work for him.
So, and Mr. Weir was real nice to him and treated him like a son. And he said, anytime you're up here, you have a job.
Yeah.
So, after the children started school, we couldn't do that.
Right. Not even come up in the summer,
Oh, we'd come up for a visit, yeah.
but he couldn't come up and work over the summer.
No, he did. I don't think he did. I don't remember.
Okay. So then what made you decide to actually come up and stay?
After we got back from the temple, your dad come out of the bedroom one morning. He'd have his prayers, and when he come out, he always had red spots up here. Do you remember those?
Right, I remember.
And he said that he felt like we needed to move to Virginia. He kind of used my mother as an excuse.
Right.
She needed somebody up here, and she'd been wanting us to move up here.
Right.
And the house up there that we bought was the people wanted to sell it, and my mother had agreed to buy it.
Right.
Yeah. So we came up and bought the house, and with the intention of building a new house.
Right.
That's a story in itself.
I know that story pretty much, but
Yeah.
I'll have to
No.
get you to sell it. So then that was set, what, 1958 or 59?
That was in 57,
7?
I think, 56 or 57.
You moved up here and...
I think it was 57.
Did y'all live in that house right away? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we did. We went in there and cleaned it up the best we could,
Yeah.
and mostly lived upstairs
Uh-huh.
because the rooms downstairs, the one room, which is the living room now, the floor was rotting out of it.
All right.
So we couldn't.
It didn't have a cement floor at the time. It was
No, it
just
had a wood floor.
Wood floor.
And I wish your dad had put another wood floor in there and jacked it up and put a good
Yeah.
foundation under it.
What was the story about the coin? Didn't you have a coin or something that fell in a crack or something?
Oh, that was when I lived up in Cataraqui when I
Oh,
was
really?
little. It was a gold piece, $50 gold piece.
Oh.
And my sister and I were playing with it, rolling it back and forth like a ball, and it flipped over and slipped up onto the
The floorboards?
floorboards. Yeah,
Oh.
so we never did find it. And nobody else would own up to finding it.
Well, $50 was a lot back then, but not.
A gold piece is worth more than that
Check
now.
that and make sure it's still running. Does it still say record? Okay. So after you guys moved up here, did he just start working for Mr. Weir then, right away?
Yes, he did.
When did he take over that company himself? That's his own business.
I don't remember.
But that was in Alexandria?
Yes.
Because I remember him working in Alexandria.
Yeah. I almost bought a house in Alexandria one time.
I remember.
Yeah, we went down and looked at it. Nice big old house.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Our lives would have been different.
Better or worse?
Well, I don't know, just different. We probably wouldn't have had the experiences that we have running through the woods. And,
Oh, no, because it was city.
yeah, it would have been different. I like the memories we have. So how long did he work in Alexandria?
I would have to think about that.
Well,
He sold the business when they were doing business with congressmen were
Right.
coming in and they wanted furniture repaired and they asked him to come to work on Capitol Hill.
right. As a contract?
No, as an
As an
government
employee.
employee.
Oh.
They wanted him to quit working there.
Okay.
So he sold that business and went to.
So he owned it by that time?
He bought it from
He bought it
Mr.
from
Weir.
Mr. Weir.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think Mr. Weir was still around. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But he sold the business and went to work on Capitol Hill, which he said was always a big mistake.
Really?
Yep.
He was a government employee then, at that
Yeah,
time
he was-
then.
I was glad that he was a
Yeah, I
government
know
employee
you
because
were.
it's secure.
How come he didn't like it?
Well, number one, we didn't have the super highways. He had
Right.
to commute to Washington, D.C. down at the Cannon Building. And it's frustrating driving in traffic every day.
Oh, yeah, and it was...
And then, when he went to work down there, different congressmen would want him to do favors,
Right.
which was illegal.
Oh.
And
Can you name some names?
no. So he didn't like that.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you,
yeah.
if you
that
did
puts
for one, then somebody else.
It's a lot of pressure
It
on
is a lot of
people.
pressure.
Yeah.
So he quit, and then,
How long did he work for the government doing that?
well, you know, I don't know how long he worked for the government.
Well, the pictures that you have,
That's
Of
from the
him.
FBI.
those are all from the FBI.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he didn't have many years in, but he took his retirement and invested it. When he went to work for the FBI then,
Mm-hmm.
he had them add those
He rolled
years
it,
and take
right.
out his retirement
Right.
and put it in.
Right, you roll it over into
Yeah,
another.
roll it over into
Now,
there.
didn't he work out of our home?
He
Have his
did.
own
That
company?
Quonset hut up there was his shop.
Right, and when did he do that then?
When he quit the government, before he
so
went to work for the
before
FBI.
In between the two?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You don't know when that was, like the years or anything?
I don't know. I don't have any idea.
Okay. Trying to get the backstory. Well, I'm trying to relate to it because I have vague memories of of him actually working in Alexandria, and I know that he worked at home
Yeah.
because he was home, but it doesn't seem in my youthful mind.
When he was
those
the
were very
bishop, when
short
he was the
periods
branch
of time.
president, he was working from home
Yeah.
because being a branch president, and I won't name any names, but we had some people who would just call him during the day and talk for hours. I'd have to get him in from the shop, you know, and they just they had all kinds of financial problems, and they wouldn't listen to the council. Angela, you're not supposed to be in here.
Okay.
Open the door every
What
now.
were you saying now? It didn't heal.
He, Ben's just gotta go outside. He always lets you know when you gotta go out. His arm, it wouldn't regenerate the skin, so we had to put him in the hospital so they could do skin grafts. We had no insurance.
Yeah.
So what money we had went to pay the hospital and doctor bills, and we tried to borrow money to finish the house we had started building,
Right.
and they would not lend us any, but they would lend us money to restore the house that we were living in. So that's why we ended up jacking the house up
I
and
see.
putting a new foundation under it and doing all that extra work. It's working.
So you just basically had the foundation of the other house.
Yes.
Because I remember as a kid hiding Easter eggs in the.
Yeah, just
And a little hole in
just
the
the
cinder box.
foundation and the floor, I guess. Maybe just a foundation. I don't think.
I think it's just the foundation.
Yeah, we didn't even have the concrete poured, just the
Yeah,
foundation.
My goodness.
So that's the story of that.
So you finished the house in pieces, huh? As you could get.
Your dad worked full time and worked on the house in spare time, and
Did he?
and the bank would lend us. They lend us. They came out and looked at the house, and they would lend us money, $500 at a time.
Oh my goodness.
And when we spend that $500 on material, and they would come out and look, make sure that we wasn't putting it on the new house, that we were putting it on that. So,
Gosh.
so
That's frustrating, I
then
bet.
eventually your dad, when he built the new kitchen on the back, because all that was new, he made it up to the foundation. So eventually, when we got the back part built, we had two houses in one.
Yeah. So after he completed the first house, he, in your spare time and as money allowed, you just finished. When did you actually finish the back part? Because he had a shop in there.
He had a
At
shop
one
in there
time.
for a while, yes. I don't recall when we exactly finished it.
I'm trying to remember. Of course, the concrete's gone, but he used to always write the dates in the concrete on the when he did the drive up into the garage. I remember he wrote the date on it. How was it about? Maybe.
Your memory's probably as good as
6 or
mine, because I don't
7.
remember what year it
Yeah, it
was.
seems like it was 1966. I remember the date written in
And
there.
you've been 6 years old.
Yeah.
That's a good guess. It's close.
Yeah, for some reason he had it written on the right hand side.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember the two stories you told me last time about Leland's cancer? I lost those because the camera.
Okay, Leland was about 5 years old. He started complaining with his leg hurting him. And it always seemed to hurt him when he had a chore to do. So for a long time we thought he was just using it as an excuse to get out of doing his chores. But eventually I realized that he wasn't faking, that his leg did actually hurt him. Now I took him to the doctor and they x-rayed it and checked it, and the only thing they could find wrong with it was they said he had a cracked kneecap. And then they put him on crutches, and we kept going back periodically, and it just kept getting worse, kept getting worse. Then they said he had water on the knee. So he remained on crutches for months, and it continued to get worse. And it finally got to where it was so painful that all during the night he'd wake up just screaming with his leg hurting him. And the missionaries at that time were at our house every day, because I fed them every day, because we didn't have a lot of members here. And they gave him blessings on many occasions, but they didn't seem to be effective. And finally, when the doctor realized he wasn't helping him in any way, he wanted him to see a specialist, and Dr. Masterson it was an Army doctor from out of D.C. come out to the medical center once a month, I guess it was. So they wanted him to take a look at it. So when he took a look at the x-rays, he said that there is a tumor on that knee. And he was amazed that the other doctors didn't see that. Anyway, they said he had cancer, bone cancer, and they would have to amputate.
They did that
leg.
without a biopsy, huh? They just
Without
did
a
the
biopsy,
X-rays,
yes. And the doctor said that he was going on vacation for a couple of weeks, and he said we didn't have any insurance, so when he got back, you know, he'd have his nurses work on getting him into Children's Hospital, where the cost would not be very much for us. And I was just devastated. I was pregnant with you, and I remember going over to the I think it was People's Drugstore is where the bank is now. I think the bank's closed up, but that Minnesota Fabrics or whatever it is.
Yeah, in the shopping center.
Yeah, there was a drugstore there. So
Right on the corner, on the very end, yes.
Right. So I went over there. I left Leland in the car and Chris. They're both such good babies. You know, you can just leave them in the car and say, you know, don't
You
get
could
out.
back then, yeah.
Yeah, and you could back then. There was no law against it. And I went in the drugstore. I went to a pay telephone and I called your dad, and I was just boo-hooing
Aw.
and told him that the doctor said he had cancer. So
Well, back then it was a death sentence, so I'm sure you must have just been, I can't even imagine.
well, one of the Kennedy boys had
Yeah.
cancer, and they amputated his leg,
Right.
and that had been in the news. And that's
You-
same type. That's what I was visioning. Yes. And anyway, he called our home teachers, which were Brother Parker and Brother Tillison, and they came out that night and they gave him a blessing. And he slept through the night. Woke up the next morning and said, "Mom, which one of my legs hurt?"
So it's the very next morning after he'd been diagnosed?
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And
is
it
amazing.
was a miracle. Because he had,
Truly.
and I've often thought maybe when we ask for priesthood blessings, we should go through our home teachers. I don't know why that was so effective when the
Sometimes-
missionaries had given him so many blessings.
Yeah, because it's the faith,
Yeah.
your faith, not
Yeah.
who's giving the blessing. There must have been something that you needed to learn in that space of time.
Maybe so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. Anyway, when the doctor came back, he walked in the doctor's office carrying his crutches, and they were just as amazed as everybody else was. So.
And he's never had a problem since.
No, he hasn't.
He was, he had
He had a mission
a
in
mission
life.
in life. He
Because
did.
I always called him my little missionary. He's,
That's
I'm
right.
not going on a mission. I'm telling you, Mom, I'm not going on a mission.
Well, he did, and he did well.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, and then the story about me falling in the hole.
Well, this was before our house was finished, and we just had a temporary kitchen. And the temporary kitchen was just was the back porch, which was a narrow porch like this one out here. He just closed it in, and he put a counter with bar stools for us to sit on and eat. And we had a sink, but the sink, we didn't have a septic tank, so he just run pipes out, and all that water went out into a ditch, drainage ditch, kind of like a little pond.
Right.
And
Temporary, a drainage pond.
and it had been a real snowy winter, and the children were anxious to go outside. It was a nice, warm, sunny day. The snow was melting, and all of them got bundled up to go outside, and you wanted to go too, and you were about 2 years old. And I told them to be sure and watch you really good. And I was washing dishes.
Tell me about the snowsuit again. Daddy had bought a
Your
snowsuit.
dad had bought you a blue taffeta bottom snowsuit and a red fuzzy jacket with a hood. And I was washing dishes. Like I say, there was no window there, but I saw you
In your mind.
in that hole. And I didn't hesitate a minute. I just grabbed the dish towel and out the door I went. And sure enough, Sharon was pulling you back out. And of course, it was muddy, and there's some snow on the ground, and it was slippery. And she gets you almost to the top, and you would slip right back down. And she
Was it over my head?
No, it wasn't
Okay.
over your head. No, but if you'd have fell in it and couldn't get up, I guess you could have drowned. But it wasn't that deep, no. But anyway, so I went and got you. So.
I have no memory of that.
I guess not, because you were only about 2 years old.
Okay, and then talk a little bit about the growth when Daddy was branch president and all your experiences with. I mean, if you have any memories that come to mind about, you know, just the church growth or any particular special memories you have about various things that we went through as a family with him being branch president.
There's a lot of sacrifice. I didn't realize at the time how much sacrifice it was, because we lived so far out. We only had one car, and of course we met so often. We met twice on Sunday, on Tuesday for primary, and Wednesday nights for young women's
Mutual, yeah.
mutual, and then I think we went on Thursday nights for Relief Society. So we were going to the church all the time, and everybody was new in the church, and we were very close. The spirit was very strong, and we were just like one big large family.
I remember church was our life.
Yeah. And my mother, she said she thought the church was true, but she said, I could never join your church because I couldn't go to church as much as y'all do. And conference was way over in Waynesboro, and your dad we had that white van, and even though it was snow on the road, we'd pack up dinner and drive all the way over to Waynesboro, and it was a whole day long.
Yeah.
And we'd take our lunch, and we'd eat in the middle of the day, then we'd have the afternoon conference, and then we'd come back home late in the afternoon.
It's interesting when you think about it, and of course my memory's tainted by the innocence of childhood, but being so involved in the gospel and having it really permeate every aspect of our lives, it seemed to be so much more peaceful, even though it must have been much more stressful because you're trying to work and do all of the things you have to do as a family. And I often wonder why now we don't have nearly as many meetings to go to, but life seems even more stressful.
It does.
And I don't know why.
And we drove all the way from Dothan, Alabama, across Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas, and New Mexico, and into Arizona to go to the temple. And we have the temple right here within hours from our home, and we don't
There's
go.
so many outside things pulling us now.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens. Okay. See, I wish I had I wish I could have memories like of building the. When did he start having? He was branch president for 10 years.
I gave you all that information.
So you have all that information
I
written
gave
down.
it to you,
I
though.
haven't read it yet. I just wanted to capture it. It's not written down, so.
I can't remember what year it was, but you have it.
Okay.
I think it was about 6 years, it seems like.
I thought it was 10.
No,
So if
it
you have it written
wasn't
down,
10. It wasn't 10 because Leland was born, and when we started going to Warrenton, was he born? I guess he was about 2 years old.
I don't know why I wrote that. Okay. Well, that's it.
That's
Is there
it.
anything else you want to talk about?
I can't think of anything right now.
Any memories or? Okay. Well, if you do, what I want to do is get all of this typed up, and then I want to email it to all my brothers and sisters, and maybe they'll be prompted from their memories to add some stuff, and then we could just get a nice,
Yes,
big,
because
complete family history.
Well, Marie can probably remember, and Sharon can probably remember. The rest of you were probably young enough that you don't remember. I remember one time, this is humorous, Leland sucked his thumb, and we were in Warrenton, the Oddfellows building, was where we met.
Oddfellows? There's a building called Oddfellows?
Oddfellows,
Did
yeah.
Oddfellows meet in there?
Yeah, it was Oddfellows Lodge.
Oh my goodness.
That's what they call. excuse me, that's what they called it anyway.
Yeah.
But we were standing, they had an old wooden stove, I guess it was coal stove, and we were kind of all standing around that stove talking. And he had a habit of hanging onto my dress and sucking his thumb, and he had Sister Hit, had her dress up, and was sucking his thumb, thinking he had his mother.
Yeah. What did she do?
She thought it was humorous.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stories I need. So as you think back about, all of the various experiences, because like I say, most of everything we did involved some sort of church activity.
It did.
So all your memories are tied to that. But then of course there's always the weenie roasts. I'll have to type up Bobby's thing and add it to this. That'll be his input. Okay. How about Daddy's accident with the van?
That was in, I don't remember what month it was, but
It's probably in like 65 or so.
no.
I was pretty young.
Were you even born?
I was, because you, when they pulled the van up, he drove the van to the house, or they pulled it up or something.
It wasn't a van. He didn't have a van. He had an old green Plymouth.
Are you sure it wasn't the white van?
The white van he wrecked coming home from the priesthood
That's the
meeting.
one I'm talking about,
You talking about that?
where they came down Purcell Road.
Yeah. Yeah, he had taken Leon and
The green Plymouth was the,
that was when
Snowdrift.
when he got wrecked,
okay.
rear-ended coming home from work.
No, the white van story,
Yeah.
coming down
Yeah,
Purcell.
he was taking the Harlow boy home from, they'd gone to a priesthood meeting, and his master cylinder ran out on the van, and it going down the hill and around the curve, and
Oh, the worst hill and curve in
Yeah,
all of Prince Edward County,
right, and
probably.
miraculously he didn't hit the tree head on,
Yeah.
or probably killed all of them,
My goodness.
but it hit the ditch, and then flipped over, and all them tools was in the back. I still wonder why didn't somebody get hit in the head with the tools, but your dad,
And Leon was there.
Leon managed to stay in the van. I
Yeah.
think he hung on to both seats or something or another. I don't know how he did
Didn't,
it.
like, weren't some of the seats ripped out of the...
I think so, yeah.
Did Daddy go through the windshield, or just his
He
head?
went through the windshield, I think.
His whole body
I
went
think
through?
he did. I'm not sure. I wasn't there.
And Leon and...
That's when Adam was a baby.
Yeah, I was about 6.
Yeah.
Was he, who else was in the van with him?
It was Danny Harlow and Leon and your dad. I guess that was all.
I remember them coming home, and I had been in bed. That was when all of us girls were in the master bedroom upstairs, top of the stairs.
So I was in the downstairs bedroom,
Right.
and Adam was just a baby.
Right.
He was only just a week or 2 old, I think.
Well, you couldn't find the flashlight, and you came and woke me up, and you were all just frantic. And when I think about it, it feels like it was just yesterday. I can remember being woken up and y'all frantically and sensing the urgency. And I guess you had thought that we had been playing with the flashlight, me and Jimmy, and maybe we might know where it had been. And we had bunk beds.
Yeah.
Me and Chris, we
Right.
slept in bunk beds. In that little teeny L in the master bedroom, had a little nightlight with a bear walking upstairs carrying a candle, just a little, like 2.5-inch
I don't
square
remember that.
nightlight, pink frame. I still remember that night. I'd look at it, I'd lay in my bottom bunk and look at that nightlight at night before I'd fall asleep. I think Marie and Sharon, that was probably the only time all of your kids were home.
Probably.
And it was just a brief period of time, because then Marie married, and
She didn't get married until she was 18.
that would have been about that time.
Yeah, well, she got married. She was home when because I've got pictures at Christmas time with her holding Adam. Well, I had pictures.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're at now, but
They're in your book somewhere, the one that I made you.
uh,
So tell me the story about leaving stepping on the rake or whatever and getting the
I don't remember that.
Daddy swabbing it out with the alcohol, and
That was a nail he
that
stepped
was a
on.
nail, but it was in his
Yeah.
leg.
But I think he must have fell. There's some old lumber out in the
Yeah.
edge of the woods there. And you on our property now.
Yeah, no.
But anyway, I think he slipped and fell or something, and the nail went in his leg.
Yeah.
So he's dead.
We all stood around watching him do
Operate?
surgery on
Well,
the
he operated on our dog and saved his life.
Yeah, he
One of
did.
vet said they couldn't do it, they could.
I'm just trying to think of any other stories. I'd like to get your impression of them on tape.
Well, write down some questions that come to your mind from time to time, and then you'll have another session.
I know, but I want to put all of this on one nice
you
big
can-
long video.
You're gonna send the video to everybody?
No, I'm
You're
going
just
to
gonna
send
send it-
copies.
you're just
and
gonna write
if
it up.
anybody wants video, we can copy it.
Right.
Maybe we can copy it to a legal disc if it's not too big, but these are pretty big videos. Let's see if I can get this. Okay, I'll stop my camera then.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Stop that.
We were living in the house kind of like campers, and I was washing my clothes and doing laundry down at my mother's house. We didn't have an inside bathroom or anything, and we decided to build a new house, so we used what money we had and bought materials and poured the back part of the house, the foundation.
That was after you had jacked up the front part.
No, we hadn't started that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And Leland, I was down at my mother's washing clothes one day, and I went out to hang out clothes and left him playing in the floor, and he climbed up, took his bucket and turned it upside down, and climbed up, and when I come back in, he was hanging by his arm, and the washing machine ringer was going round and round, so,
It just ate his skin off, didn't it?
yeah, well, it didn't heal. He had to finally go to the hospital and have skin grafts. Now it's on.
Okay. Let me get it. Okay. If the light goes off, let me know, because I got extra batteries.
Okay.
Okay. We, I don't remember where I was. I got the, I don't remember where I was. We did the temple. Oh, you were going to talk about, renovating the house. And how, your decision to buy it and your plans for it. And
We bought it because we always thought it was such a beautiful old home. It always had all these wild roses and flowers all in the front yard. Every time we came up here, we were just amazed at the beauty of it. Well, the lady and her and her brother lived there, and they decided that they were going to sell it. So my mother called and wanted to know if we'd like to buy it. It was very reasonable. I don't remember now what we get for it, but it wasn't very much. And we told her yes, so she went ahead and made arrangements to get it. And then when we came up, we bought it. I think my mother bought it, and then we bought it from her. I think that's the way it worked. But we had never been inside it.
oh.
It was just from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went up there to take a look at it, the floors were all rotting out. And the room on the north side that's used for the den,
Uh-huh.
that was so bad, and it had a fireplace in there, but at night skunks would come in, or some kind of animals.
Really?
Yes, would come in. Anyway, it
Were there
was.
two fireplaces?
Hmm?
Were there twin fireplaces, one on either end of the house?
I don't know whether there wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know whether there was or not.
Okay.
I just know it's one on the north side on that
Mhm.
room. And then where my living room is now, that was all rotted out too, so we couldn't use the downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So we just kind of had our bedrooms upstairs, and the old kitchen had a wood stove in it, and we used it for a short while.
Where was the kitchen located?
Where my
Originally.
kitchen is now.
Oh, I thought that was a back porch.
And dining room. No, the porch was on the side
Oh, okay. Which side?
where we're using for the front of the house now.
That was the porch.
There was a porch there.
Oh, okay. Closest to the road.
No, it was a driveway.
Oh, okay. Closest to the driveway. That was
Yeah.
the back porch. So the back porch was not where the kitchen is.
No,
Okay.
because the kitchen's on the opposite side of the house.
Glad I'm talking to you about this because my home memories are totally warped.
You probably remember when you had the temporary kitchen. which
I
was
remember
which was
pouring
where
the floor.
which was where the porches.
I vaguely remember pouring the cement floor in the kitchen. Maybe it's not a true memory. Anyway.
Anyway, your dad got busy and he jacked the house up. Got some jacks and put under and jacked it up and cut out all the rotten wood on the bottom part. And it was a tremendous job. Then he worked full time, so he just did it evenings and nights. Then he poured concrete for the different rooms, and we did not intend to make a long story short, we didn't intend to, the house was so bad, we decided we would build a new house.
Mm-hmm.
So
you just made it livable temporarily.
Temporarily. So we...
When did you make that decision? Before or after you started jacking it up?
No, before. We decided we're not going to restore it
so
because
pouring the floors and stuff was always a temporary thing.
Well, I got ahead of myself, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We decided that we was going to build a new house,
mm-hmm.
and we had a little bit of money saved, and we went ahead and...
Okay, go ahead. Okay, so when you went to the temple, they treated you like royalty?
They treated us really special because we had traveled so many thousands of miles to get there with 5 children in our car.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when we were in the chapel. They honored us and recognized us and had us stand. But then when we were going to go through our first session, we were walking down the hall, and when we got to the door to go into the room,
mm-hmm.
and they stopped us and they closed the door because we hadn't been interviewed by the temple president.
Oh.
And that was I think about it so many times, what a feeling, horrible feeling you have when you get so close and the door's closed and you're not worthy to go in.
Yeah, scary, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. But we went on the next session, so.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, next time we come, I have 3 other things. One was talk about the repairing of the house. So this I'm prompting you, so you'll be ready.
Okay.
And Leland's accident with the washing machine
Okay.
thing. And also about your experience with Daddy being branch president.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can tell me again about Leland's cancer and when I fell in a hole. So there's 4 things that we have to finish up with. You can think about those 4 things, and probably tomorrow afternoon I'll come down and finish it up. Okay.
Now Friday, Jennifer, she won't need me this week. She maybe she'll off and leave. I said, Laura, did you clean up behind yourself in the living room? No, I picked up most of my stuff, but her books piled down there, then her patches with somewhere.
Right now.
Huh?
I feel like I'm a maid and housekeeper with Jennifer and those boys.
They've had a bad day today?
No, not really. It's just
they
their
were
boys.
They were able to play outside a lot more.
This morning.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay. Well, for one, the last time the camera ran out before it cut off the last 2 spiritual experiences, so you'll have to share those again. But to fill in the blanks, I just put in here that you don't remember your father, but I thought it would be nice if you had something you could say about the history of your mother and any of that that she shared with you.
It's not going to be good for sharing.
But it's still history, so. So what's the story of your mother?
I have no idea.
No, but she left home when.
When she was young, she said that her mother died when she was, 2 or 4? Maybe she was 4 years old when her mother died. And then her dad remarried.
Mm-hmm.
And when
she was a teenager, wasn't she?
No, she was 4 years old, I think, when her dad remarried. But she always referred to her as a wicked stepmother.
Yeah.
And when her dad came home and said, I have you a new mother, she said she had a temper tantrum and said she's not no new mother of mine, and she went behind the door and cried.
Yeah.
And the whole time that she lived there, she claimed that all her mother did was have children, and she would have to do the laundry and cooking and cleaning, and so she left home I don't know how old she was, but she left home as soon as she could. And whether she ran away, I do not know.
Okay.
I do know that she had no dealings with her family at all until I was in the 6th grade, I believe it was. I must have been 12. And I was in school with my uncle, and I did not even know he was my uncle until he told me he was. And so I came home from school all excited because I had met my uncle, and I had a granddaddy. I was always envious when we'd have holidays at school, like Christmas and Easter, and my friends would come back and they'd just be so happy because they had spent time with their cousins having fun. We didn't have any cousins. We had no aunts, no uncles, no cousins, just my mother.
Wow.
And that was it. So it's kind of a sad situation, really.
Well, everybody has different memories.
Yeah, they do. I had some good memories, but I didn't have any close family memories.
What do you call it? Yeah, your
Siblings.
extended family.
Yeah.
So you don't know how your mother met your dad, or
No.
how, if they even married or anything, huh?
No, she said she was married, just took his name, and we have his
And
name,
what was his name?
James Edward Thomas.
Okay.
And she always told me that his father was a judge in Akron, Ohio. And when I was living down in Dothan, Alabama, I wrote to Akron, Ohio, to the county clerk, and could not. They sent me several names of James Edward Thomases, but none of them was the right
Did she
one.
give you a birth date or any of that information?
I have that on my genealogy somewhere.
But was it from her? She gave you
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah. I don't have it right now because I don't know what happened to all my genealogy. I've packed up and moved around so much. But he was just a little bit older than she was.
Okay. My next, I've got it folded where I have holes here. I don't know what that means. Can't read my notes.
Something.
Well, oh yes. I wanted you to talk about going to the temple and being sealed to you. You and Daddy being sealed and having the kids sealed to you, because you didn't talk about that.
Well, we lived in the East Coast, of course, down in Dothan, Alabama, and there was no temple anywhere on the East Coast at that time. The closest temple was in Mesa, Arizona. And we were a struggling young couple. Your dad took an extra job, and all the money he made working at nights on this job was...
What job was it?
He built some extra furniture for people.
Oh, okay. Just worked overtime. Okay.
And all that money was put into a special, what we call our temple fund. And when we had enough money saved, we went to the temple, and the date was, what, March? It's down there on some of those papers.
It's on the papers. Okay, I'll get that.
And it ended up that not only did me and him and the 5 children, but it was his mother and Randolph. Not Randolph, but Ronnie. Ronnie was a teenage troubled child.
That's another story.
Yes. All went in a car. Now you couldn't do it because
you
have to have seat belts. But then you just kind of...
How long did it take him to save, or you guys to save the money to go?
It didn't take all that long, if I recall correctly. I don't really remember the months, but it wasn't too long. And the amazing thing about it, when we came back to the temple, we had a lot of money left over. It didn't take near as much as we thought it would. We stayed with a Shumway family in Mesa, which was right within walking distance of the temple.
How long did it take you to drive there?
It seems like it was 3 days.
Yeah. Did you sleep in the car at night, or just drive straight through? Or?
We slept. Most of the time we slept in the car, just travel straight through. You know how your dad was when he traveled. Yeah. But the hard part was Leland was 5 months old, and he was still in diapers. Back then they didn't have disposable diapers. There was no McDonald's or Burger Kings or fast food restaurants. So I took some flannel sheets and made diapers that I could throw away.
You invented Pampers.
Huh?
You invented Pampers.
Well, no, I didn't invent that. And we took, Spam and, canned meats and stuff, and we just made sandwiches along the way when we would stop. But when we were going through Texas, which took us 2 whole days to get through Texas, because we drove the whole,
the width,
the length of it, wasn't it?
Oh,
was it the width of it? Whichever.
Yeah.
The long part, anyway. and the wind blew. There was always the wind blowing, and the sand.
Yeah.
You'd go take a bite of your sandwich, and there'd be grit in your mouth because the sand would blow it out on our food. But it was a lovely trip. Mrs. Shumway was very nice to us.
How did you know them?
I don't know how your dad managed to, I guess his mother probably was influential in maybe finding a place to stay, or maybe they advertised. I don't really know. But she had in Mesa, the temperature's real hot and dry.
Right.
And I was able to wash clothes while I was there and hang them out in just a matter of minutes. They were dry. Yeah, it was so nice.
Wow.
She had a wash house out in the backyard. It wasn't inside the house.
Wow.
And she let us use all the facilities.
How long did you stay with them?
We were there for 3 days.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you, that was the first time either of you had gone through the temple, so.
That was the first time for both of us,
you
yes.
did your endowments and then you got sealed?
Did it all on the same day, yes.
Did you go back to the temple after that?
Yes, we did.
Good.
My mother-in-law kept the children and we went back by ourselves. That was it's so much to learn. You can't, and you're so overwhelmed with everything. And back then, they didn't have the film. You went through, like you did in Salt Lake, where you go through different rooms. And but the second time I went through, I think I've told you this.
Probably.
When I got to where you go through the veil, and I put my hand in, and I drew it back real quick. I said, "That's not my husband." The lady was real patient. "That's okay, honey. That's okay." But I was thinking,
you thought it should be him again.
And it should be him again.
It was him the first time.
Yes, right. He took me through.
Oh,
yeah.
Sure.
So
what was the experience like being sealed to your children after all that long wait?
It was very nice. Yes, it was real good. I think Marie and Bobby, and maybe Sharon could still remember their experiences out there. I don't know how they really felt about it, but I think they were amazed at it also.
Okay. Okay. You didn't talk much about repairing the house. Hello. Hello. Huh? I'm interviewing Mom. Yeah. Oh, whatever you'd like to do. No way. Really? What's he doing there? Oh, okay. Okay.
And the first question is?
Well, last time we were talking about Daddy's working for himself, and I remember you were telling me about.
See, I don't know how far we got. We should have made some kind of a note.
Well, I have
where we left
other
off.
disc.
Because he came up here from Alabama.
Right, and he bought. You said he bought a.
Well, he went to work for Mr.
Right.
Weir.
He got all that.
And then he eventually bought out Mr. Weir.
Right.
Mr. Weir retired. And he did work for a lot of congressmen that worked on Capitol
I don't think we've
Hill.
gotten to that part yet.
Hadn't got to that part?
So his office was in Alexandria.
Yeah.
So he
Colonial
just bought
Furniture
that
Company in Alexandria, yeah. Well, they did
Okay.
upholstery mostly.
How long did he keep it there?
For several years, but I don't know exactly how long. I would say 3, maybe 4 years.
Was he working there when he had the snowstorm incident?
Yes.
Coming back?
Yes. But he hadn't bought it then.
Oh, that was before
he was
bought
just
it.
working for Mr. Weir.
What year was that? Do you remember?
So, well, I could take and figure it out because of the children's ages. Sharon was, well, let's see, who was a baby?
I probably wasn't even born, so it had to
No,
be.
you weren't.
And if you guys were living up here,
I think Leland, either Chris or Leland was a baby.
it would have been Leland.
Because
You were living here, right? Because you
No.
didn't move.
No, I was living in my house up there.
Right.
My mother lived down here in her house. She had a telephone. I didn't even have a telephone.
Because you moved here in like 58, right?
No, we moved up here from Alabama in 1955.
Oh, okay. So you had 5 years before I was born. I just figured you were here for a couple of years.
No.
So Sharon, well, they were young enough to walk down and do the
I
phone.
bottled them up so they could walk down to my mother's house so they could call and see where he was at.
All three of them?
Yeah, because I thought it was best to send all three of them together.
Yeah.
And the snow was probably up to their waist, so it took them forever to get down here. And my mother was very upset that I'd even done that. That's, young mothers sometimes don't think of the danger. And they were soaking wet from walking in the snow, so she took off their coats and snowshoes and boots and dried them beside her fire.
Yeah.
And eventually Papa brought them back on the tractor. And they found out that he had made it as far as he could, which was at the end of Kaiser now.
Mhm.
Then it was just a dirt road.
He had you were telling us
He
this
was coming
story
up the hill and
on Kaiser.
on Kaiser, yeah, and he couldn't make it any further. So that's where he spent the night, sleeping in his car, covered with newspaper.
Mm-hmm. It seemed like to me when you were telling us this story a couple months ago, something happened to the car, or?
Well, on the way home from work, the reason he was late,
Right.
he got rear-ended.
Right. That's right.
And it knocked the trunk in, so it was air coming in through the back.
Yeah.
And he was nice to the guy and said, you couldn't help it, and he wouldn't take anything compensation for the damages. But he decided to turn around and go to a movie until the traffic cleared up. Then he could get home. He didn't know it was going to get that deep, I guess. So he went to a movie. And then when he tried to get home, it was so deep that he was pushing snow with the front of his car. So, and when daylight came, somehow he got his car turned around and drove back to Independent
So he spent
Hill.
the night.
Yeah,
in
to
that
Samsky's store.
car.
And then
Freezing weather.
and then he called from Samsky's store to my mother. And
Covered up with newspapers.
yeah.
Oh my goodness, that must have been a miserable
Well,
night.
he was just about froze to death when he
I
got
bet.
home. We had to thaw him out with cold water.
So he drove to Samsky's and.
Yeah, and the Samskys called Papa, and Papa went down with his he brought the kids home on the tractor, dropped them off, then he went on down to Samskys and picked him up on the tractor because no cars could get through.
I bet you were sick with worry.
Oh, I was. All night long I kept getting up. And
Oh my goodness.
you know how the wind's blowing
Yeah.
now? Well, the wind was blowing just like that, and the snow, and it was like a blizzard, is what it was. And you couldn't see, and I'd get up and I'd go look out the window, and I wonder, where is he? And I couldn't sleep. So.
He probably got up the next morning and went back to work, didn't he?
Oh, no.
Oh, he didn't.
No. Couldn't even get out to get to work.
So, after he bought the business from Mr. Ware, how many years did he work in Alexandria on the business? Oh.
Several years. I just know that
And then he moved it to our house?
No. He worked there, like I said, he worked, and a lot of the congressmen
Right.
would bring their furniture in there, and they were so pleased with his work that they begged him to come to work for the government, because they needed somebody to be a boss of the carpenter shop down on Capitol Hill. So he didn't really want to do it. I kind of talked him into it, which I'm glad I did now, because our Social Security wouldn't be enough for me to even live off of.
You never know, though. I hear more and more since we've been in business about companies that
This is a government. Government pays good.
But companies like what he was doing, and
Yeah.
now they're huge corporations.
Oh, it could have been. Come on over and sit beside me and be on camera.
Well, I need you to ask questions too, Adam. I'm trying to think of them. I need help.
So then he sold his business, and then he went to work on Capitol Hill, and he worked there for 5 or 6 years. I don't recall how long he worked. Bobby was young then, because he used to take Bobby to work with him once in a while.
He took us to work with him once, me and Jimmy. I remember the big piles of sawdust.
Sucks being the last one.
We were probably 8, 7,
Yeah.
and they had big bins filled with sawdust, and we would climb in and play.
I don't
That's
remember
probably
that.
why I love to go into Home Depot and smell that wood.
But down on Capitol Hill, a lot of that's underground, going from one building to the other.
Yeah.
You get on a little track and a little car there, and it takes you underground to different places.
So, did he go directly from working on Capitol Hill to working for the FBI?
No, he got tired of working for the government because it was a lot of dishonesty going on, he felt. And there was different congressmen who wanted him to come in and do stuff for them on, let the government pay for it. Anyway, he decided to quit and go back in business for himself.
Oh, okay.
So that's when he opened up that shop behind the house.
Oh. Yeah, you have a special use permit for that one.
Yeah, he did have a special use.
Remember.
Yeah. So then he worked there for a good many years, did very
He
well.
probably still had clients that he could just
Yeah.
roll over.
He had some good clients. And then the FBI Academy opened up down here, and so he went to work.
Doing the same thing he did on Capitol Hill?
Did the
pretty
same thing, pretty much. Yeah, only they didn't do work for, he didn't do any outside work.
Right.
People didn't bring in, it was just work for the FBI.
He helped to build their, they have like a chapel or something there, and the guy told me, when we took a tour of it, the guy remembered him and said that he helped to build the pews. There was a
Yeah.
lot of beautiful woodwork there. And I think he also helped to build the fake city that they use for their drills.
Probably.
There's a name for it, I can't remember the name.
Leland has all of the pictures. I fixed Leland a nice album for Christmas. So he has all of those pictures. I'm intending to get it back and make copies so that I could give my other children pictures.
I know, all of us have little bits of information here and there, and we need to compile it. So, okay, that's kind of covers all the work stuff. Tell me the story of how when you guys were, how long had you been here when the missionaries tracked you out?
Leland was a baby when the missionaries came, so that would be in what, he was born in, you were born in 66?
He was born in 56.
I was born in 60.
He was born in,
He was born.
56.
he was born in 56. I have to find my piece of paper that has all the dates on when we went to Warrington. I have it somewhere.
when y'all first came up here, you immediately looked to where a church was, and
We looked for where there was a church, and there was nothing except the only thing we could locate was on 16th Street in Washington, D.C., which no longer, they sold that building to somebody.
yeah.
And President Ezra Taft Benson went to that church, so we got to go attend church with Ezra Taft Benson.
Wow.
And Marion G. Romney attended that church. And we got to go on a Pioneer Day
Everyone's name dropping now.
a Pioneer Day at the Marriott Farm with hay rides and all
I
kind
was
of.
going to say, I remember that, but
Good food to eat.
I remember Pioneer Day at the Rudder Farm, which was fun.
Rudder
It wasn't
Farm?
the Marriott. It was out in Haymarket. We had a big barrel with ropes, I guess, that they bounced you on. Had to,
See, I don't even remember that one.
maybe that was the Marriott Farm. I was the kid, so I don't really remember the details. So you went through that one, and then
We
from
went there just a few times because there was no super highways then, and we had to go 29 all the way, red lights.
Yeah.
So it took a long time to get down there. And we would attend Sunday school, and then we drive back home, but we never went back for sacrament meeting. the few times that we went to sacrament meeting, I took a picnic lunch, and we'd
Just stay.
go over to the zoo, Rock Creek Park, and have a picnic lunch, and try to keep the kids clean enough to go back to sacrament meeting. So we didn't do that, but just 2 or 3 times.
And then from there.
And then somehow or another, your dad found out that there was a church in Arlington, which was a little bit closer, so we went there.
That's still there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went to Arlington Chapel for a while, and then somebody told him that Alexandria was a chapel on King Street
Right.
in Alexandria. So we started going there, and that's where we went. He was made Sunday school teacher for the 11-year-old children, and I was called to work in the nursery. And Christine was young then,
Mm-hmm.
so because I was in the nursery with her, and the Tillotson family lived in Manassas Park, and they started coming. So, and their little girl is named Kristen.
Oh.
Kristen, yeah. So.
And then from there, where did you?
Well, we continued to go there until the missionaries came out one
Okay.
Saturday and said, hey, we'd like to organize a branch in Warrenton. And the Fredericksburg branch somehow knew that we were here.
Tell us that story. You were fishing, or?
The children wanted to go fishing down at the pond, and your dad and I walked down there with them, and we'd been fishing for a while, and it was on a Saturday afternoon, I believe, and we were walking back up the hill, and this car drove up with these 2 young men in it, and they stopped and said they were looking for the Phipps family. And I said, well, we are the Phipps family, and your husband's going to sleep.
That's okay.
Anyway, they came on back to the house, and we talked, and they said that they had been sent out to try to find us, wanted us to help with the organizing of the Warrenton branch. So we went up there that Sunday, and your dad was made, I think, second counselor.
The very first, that Sunday?
That's when they organized it, that
Okay.
Sunday, yeah. And Brother Clater, Charlie Clater, was,
Well, now, didn't you meet in some homes in Manassas for a while?
that was when we first started, yeah.
That's the branch.
Was
Actually,
that the Manassas branch? Oh, okay, so this is before
this
then.
is before the Manassas
Oh, okay.
branch. This was, the Warrenton branch was
I
before.
see.
We kept going to Warrenton, and they put missionaries in Manassas,
Mhm.
and they were baptizing like crazy. So the majority of the people in the Warrenton branch were from Manassas.
Mm-hmm.
So they got permission for us to have Sunday school in Manassas and just go to Warrenton for sacrament meeting. So we were just, I guess you'd call it independent Sunday school under the
Mhm.
direction of the Warrenton branch.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to meet in different families' homes because we didn't have any
Right.
building. And then there were so many of us in Manassas, they wanted to organize a branch in Manassas, but we had to find a place to meet. And we managed to rent the VFW hall, which is,
It seemed so big when I was a little kid, and we drove by it
it's so
periodically,
tiny.
and it's so
isn't it?
tiny now.
All it is one big room, and we had one class in every corner. You had a class in the kitchen. Sometimes we had one in the center. You think of the chaos of trying to teach a Sunday school class with
Mhm.
open like that. But we'd have to go in early. Of course, your dad was the branch president, and I would have to drive him in early in the morning because we only had one car, then come back home and get the kids ready, and then drive back in for Sunday school. Then we'd come,
All those kids alone.
and
When you
then,
drove him in
well, they were old enough then that they were, the oldest one was,
When we went there, Marie was in Young Women's, because we're mutual. 'Cause
yeah,
I
they were,
remember she,
Marie and Sharon were teenagers.
yeah, I remember them being teenagers.
Yeah.
But you had to clean up.
We'd have to go in there early in the mornings and pick up the beer cans and sweep the place and get it ready, because they'd have dances and things the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, it always smelled like a,
Like a party.
yeah. So, then I'd drive your dad in for his meetings, and then I'd come back home, get your kids ready, and we'd drive in for Sunday school, after Sunday school, we'd have to stay because you'd have to have a
Mm-hmm.
bishop's meeting or something.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah. And then I'd come home and fix a nice dinner and then drive back to the sacrament meeting. So Sundays, you think Sundays are rough now. They were
We
tiring.
forget about those days, don't
Yeah,
we?
right.
That our life was the church.
That's right. On Sundays, you didn't have time to do anything else.
Well, and then throughout the week we had meetings galore
Yeah.
with primary,
Primary on
and
Tuesday
mutual
evenings.
and Relief Society every week. I remember that. There was no time for anything but church. But it was good.
It was.
I have great memories from
The
that.
spirit was very strong.
Well,
back
tell me
then.
about the rummage sales we used to have.
The rummage sales?
I remember the rummage sales we made. Once we made little lead soldiers.
Brother Tilson
and-
was in the Air Force, and somehow or another he was able to get lead, and we melted that lead down. He also had the what do you call it? The
mold?
The mold, that's the word. The mold that we pour the lead into to make the lead soldiers and the lead cannons, and we made those and sold them.
This is for building fund? Because we needed to buy our own building.
Yes. We
I know you made wreaths one year out of
we
plastic.
we would have the cleaners donate their
Right.
plastic bags, and we would cut them in strips and make clothes hangers and bend them and make beautiful
Mhm.
wreaths for doors.
I just remember the Christmas tree lot there.
We did a
And
Christmas tree lot
we
one
had
year.
Christmas tree lots where we they froze.
You know, it's a lot of work, but they were good memories when, you know, all of those, that's all we did. You know,
Yeah.
you just devote your life to serving, and you don't think
And,
about it as work.
and we had bake sales. We'd have rummage sales where I'd go around and ask for people to
I
donate their
remember
stuff.
going with you, picking up stuff,
And we'd
and
have
being
to
sorely disappointed that we couldn't keep some of those toys that you would bring.
and then we'd have to go find a vacant building that would let us use it in Manassas where we could have our rummage sale. Yeah, it was
We continued to have them even after we built the building, because I remember having rummage, or having,
no, that was bazaars, you
we had
remember.
bazaars.
Yeah, we didn't have
What
rummage.
was the money raised for in that case?
That's just, well, some of it we donated to the
You
building
donated-
fund,
We still
yeah.
had the building fund then.
Yeah, but in order to get our building, we had to have so many tithe payers in
Mhm.
our branch, and also we had each family would have a dinner
Mhm.
and invite other members of the church in, and they'd have to pay, let's say, $50 or so and so.
Really?
Yeah,
What was that called?
I don't know.
How do we
It was just
call
a
that?
building fund dinner that we would have.
And
And
people
then
that
at
came
one
to eat
time,
with you would
at one
pay,
time,
or
the
who-
bishop, the branch president and his councils met with us and told us they had decided that each family would be assessed
Right, I remember that.
so much money. And
That's hard.
it was not easy, but we always met
Mhm.
whatever was required of us.
Yeah. How
And
did,
we never went hungry, and we never had to ask for any assistance, even with 8 children.
Mhm.
So the Lord takes care of us when we
He
do
does.
what we're supposed to do.
I agree. This dinner thing, who paid? You paid, or the people who came to your home to eat?
I would buy the food and prepare it and
Uh-huh.
invite people in, and the people who came would pay.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's an interesting concept.
Yes. It didn't go over very well, but we had a few of them.
Yeah, because you're spending money on the food, so you might as well just take that money and.
Right, and
Oh, well.
donate it. That's the way I feel
Well.
about these kids from school selling
Yeah.
these things. You might as well say, give me a donation.
Yeah. So then, how long were we in the, what is it again, the VFW hall?
I don't know.
I remember going there,
You
probably just a couple of years, because I remember I was baptized when we moved across the street to that Baptist building.
You were
Big, I
baptized in the-
loved that
in the
beautiful, it was a big, beautiful building.
yeah, but it was
It's very grand.
very much in need of repair.
Yeah,
So,
that's the one Sharon was married in.
yeah, she was married in that building.
And we must have only gone there for a couple of years.
We didn't go there very long.
Because I was about 10, I guess, when we broke ground for the Barrett Drive, the building on Barrett Drive. We don't actually had enough money to go around. Maybe 9, maybe 10.
I have to remember which year that was. I have a book here somewhere.
You do? Where it's all written down?
Hmm.
Well, that's good.
So next time you come, and if you tell me before you come, I'll get it out. We can put down the correct dates.
Well, I'm going to type all this up. I'll get the dates for that then.
It's a dedication of the Manassas. I have the.
You have the thing, the brochure.
Yeah,
I know.
right.
Can't think of any more questions. Anything else you want? Well, what are some spiritual experiences you've had?
I've had lots of spiritual
Yeah.
experiences, but they're personal.
Okay. Don't want to share any for your posterity?
The one where you fell in the hole, that's a spiritual experience. The one where I went to sleep behind the wheel, that's a spiritual experience. You know those.
But everybody,
When you type it in, you can type it in.
they all want copies of this too.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they want to see you telling the stories.
Oh. Well, you were born in March. You were a very nervous baby.
Probably because Leland had cancer
Yeah,
while you were pregnant with me.
that's right. So I was upset, maybe.
Yes.
That may be why you were born
I'm
upset.
convinced that's it.
Might be. But anyway, in June, I think it was, we were going to Alabama, and your dad always had this great big Ford van, and it was enough room in the back for the kids to sleep, and then there was a seat for me to sleep on with a pillow, and then you had a nice car bed that fit behind the driver.
I was just
And-
making sure the green light was on.
And we always traveled at night because the kids would sleep, and by morning we were pretty much on our way down there, so we wouldn't have to drive but maybe half a day more. But you were nervous and wouldn't sleep. You cried and cried and cried because I guess the tractor trailers and the bright lights, the noise, every time you'd hush, the tractor trailer would swoosh by, and then you just start screaming again. So I didn't get any sleep.
I'm over that now. I hope you know.
I
I
hope.
don't do it as much.
I hope. And I don't know, it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Your dad said that he was getting pretty tired and sleepy and wanted if I was ready to drive some. And even though I hadn't been asleep, I didn't want to tell him that I was sleepy too. So I got up and drove, and he got, instead of getting in the back seat where I was at, he stayed on the passenger seat, and there was a motor in the
I
middle,
remember that.
and he just put a pillow on that motor and just kind of laid over like that. And I drove for a while, and I don't think I drove very long. I can remember the tractor trailers blinking their lights at me, and it kind of snapped me out of it. And then finally I felt this warm breath on my neck, and a soft voice says, "Where do you think you're going?" And I woke up, and I was going off to the left-hand side of the road, right into the woods. So I swerved back over and came off on the right-hand side of the road and pulled off on the shoulder. And of course, when you get off on the gravel like that, your dad raised up and says, "What are you doing?" So I told him that I had gone to sleep. And I asked him if he was the one that woke me up. He said no, he didn't. And I should have known that he wouldn't have said it nice and soft like that. He would have yelled, "Where do you think you're going?"
He probably was, yeah.
Yeah. So that was one spiritual experience I had. Another time was when you were little. You were about 2 years old, and your dad had bought you a